Well, let's talk to Sandra Phlippen, the chief economist at ABN AMRO Bank in the Netherlands. Sandra, welcome. One UK news journal tonight, The Spectator, is talking about a eurozone sovereign debt crisis exacerbated by Italy. Is that over-egging it, or is that a fair picture of the eurozone?
I wouldn't go as far as to call it a sovereign debt crisis yet, but the risks are certainly present, yes.
Eurozone inflation hits a new record of 8.9%. How much worse are you expecting it to get before it starts getting better?
A very hard question, because it depends on geopolitical factors that are hard stuff for economists to forecast. But so basically, what we're expecting now is that towards the end of the year, inflation will start slowly coming down. However, still remain way above target, might even be into the second half of 2023. And that is inflation. So basically, that's a year-on-year comparison of prices. The other thing is that we also have come to the conclusion that energy prices will probably stay high for maybe even quite some years. And the second thing that basically is going on since the war is that there is a lasting trade realignment going on. And that also takes several years to basically find to a new global trade. And both of those things are very costly and potentially price increasing.
For those of us who are not economists, it can be a rather confusing picture, can't it? Eurozone economy did grow in the second quarter, despite the energy crisis that you were talking about and that inflation surge. Do you think this is the last hurrah before things turn down?
Well, I think it's quite a nice description, actually, Jamie, because the thing is that my feeling is that there are two factors basically causing the discrepancy between growth, which is still all right, while inflation is already that high. And that is one, households actually very often have energy contracts. So, for example, we notice in the Netherlands, we actually measure what kind of contracts people have. And there we see that the amount of energy price increases that people are actually on a daily or monthly basis paying in their energy bill is by far not as large as energy inflation in the CPI shows. And this is quite important. It means that the inflation is basically much more slowly coming into people's purchasing power. That said, of course, there are many other prices that are rising. So food prices in the supermarket, everybody is feeling the difference. But that is an important nuance. And depending on the energy contracts that households, but also firms are having, basically is very important to understand the delay with which inflation is going to erode, productivity of firms and consumption of households. The other thing that is going on is that actually the second quarter is very much kind of a reopening feast after the last series of lockdowns in the eurozone. And particularly the Southern European tourism industries, which have suffered so hard from the COVID crisis, are really making their way back right now in the second quarter. And that is something, that's something really positive, I would say. So that's, I guess, that's the reason why growth is showing a different picture than inflation right now.
And for people watching perhaps outside Europe, just give us some context on stagnation in Germany. Just how significant is this for Europe's largest economy and Europe?
Well, that is the big risk. I mean, there are actually many big risks right now heading towards Europe. It's the Italian crisis, it's the global financial tightening, but in fact, also what's going to happen to Germany, the economic powerhouse of Europe. Germany has the largest Russian gas dependence. Europe as a whole consumes 150 billion cubic meters gas on an annual basis. And we have to find a way to do without those billions of cubic meters. Now, I think what is interesting is a kind of a shift that we see in Germany in the last few weeks, where basically in first instance it was always the consumer, the households that were going to be protected first and foremost, and that the industry would be shut down. Now, the Minister of Economic Affairs, Habeck, is actually has turned this around, and he said, well, that is a clear way to go, a clear strategy if it's a temporary energy crunch. We are now facing a more structural crunch, and the way to deal with that is to make everybody save as much as possible, firms and households, and then to be able to shut down industry as little as possible, because even households in the end will feel a massive burden if that would happen. And not only German households, but everybody in Europe would be suffering from that situation. So we all are basically hoping that the Germans succeed in getting as much energy savings as possible from turning the lights out, as we heard before.
Sandra, good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. Sandra Phlippen in Rotterdam.